How can you break through the illusion of productivity and have real progress in both your life and your business? In this episode, I'm going to cover the one core thing that I've seen when it comes to productivity that is lacking in all of the productivity advice out there. I have read a ton of books on productivity. I've written a book myself called The Magic of Focus, where I cover core tips on being more focused. And though this advice can be very useful, the Pomodoro and deep work and time blocking, I've used it all, it's very useful, there is one notion that is missing. What all this productivity advice focuses on is on the how. How do you cram more things into your day? How do you organize the different things? How do you switch off all the distractions and notifications? How can you be more focused? But what it forgets is the what. And you can do all the hows perfectly. You can use Pomodoro and time blocking and do your deep work in the morning. But if the what is wrong, then you're being totally counterproductive. And this is what is always missing, because actually the what is the hardest part. To be able to learn to time block, to have your little Pomodoro break, to do deep work in the morning is fine. But what is it that you're going to choose to work on in that one deep work slot in the morning? That is actually the core secret of a very productive and high performing work, business, life, and that is the bit that is missing. So here we're going to explore how you can find out what the what is so that you can actually apply all these productivity hacks and make real progress. When you're looking at, for instance, let's say your deep work, so when you want to block an hour to an hour and a half in the morning to do deep work, you want to focus on one thing in your business that really moves the needle forward. How do you find out what that one thing is? So you can use all this Eisenhower, urgent, important, you can do a bit of a business reflection, but you'll never be sure that that one thing is actually the one that makes the biggest difference, because maybe it helps, maybe it was important, maybe it helps to build your personal branding, or maybe it helps with your marketing strategy, or maybe it was something the customer required. But how do you know that that one thing was the right thing to focus on in the first place? That's actually the essence of high productivity. And there's no magic formula to find out what that one thing is that you need to do in the morning when you're doing your deep work, for instance, and even throughout the day when you schedule the rest of your day. How do you know which calls are really valuable to get onto? Maybe some of them will lead to an amazing business opportunity that you didn't see coming. How do you know which ones you need to eliminate? How do you know what meetings to attend and not? All of these different questions are particularly relevant when you're running your own company, because you choose how you schedule different things, and you can vary and have maybe a bit more flexibility and cancel certain things depending on how you're choosing to work. So that's when it gets extremely challenging. It's not just about time blocking all the different calls, but are there the right calls to get onto? It's not just about having that deep work slot in the morning. Is that the deep work you want to do? The way you find this out, it's simply through trial and error. Again, there isn't a magic formula. I can't tell you based on what your business is. That's why none of the productivity advice does say this, because they assume, oh, you'll know what are the things to work on. You just need to learn the strategies to manage distractions, or to prioritize a bit better, or to be able to focus more effectively. They assume that you'll know what the what is. But I've seen, definitely running my own company and also working with my clients, that that's far from being easy. And one of the reasons why people jump into urgent work immediately is because urgent is clear. You've got a bunch of emails, you need to answer the emails. That's really clear. Deep work, an important background work, well, I could do this one piece for a client, I could send in that one proposal, I could do a bit of marketing. How do you know which one to choose? And this is one of the greatest struggles I have seen when it comes to being highly productive in your work. And if you ignore that struggle, you just end up going for the dopamine hit of checking all the things off your to-do list, but without actually making real progress on the tangible, important things that are the needle movers in your business. So I was saying it all comes down to trial and error, because you track what you do. Let's say you do a deep work slot every morning, which I highly recommend. I did another video on deep work, and Cal Newport talks about this, and many other productivity people out there. You just start the day with 1 to 1 hour and a half of deep work, no interruptions, no distractions, no email, no communication. And in that one slot, you have this, let's say every day, 5 days a week, got an hour to an hour and a half. What do you do in that one slot? That is the key to high growth and performance in the business. Because based on how you spend those 20 slots in the month, it can make a huge difference if you're using those slots to build your personal branding through writing articles, or you're using that deep work slot to reach out for new opportunities in something specific, or you're using that deep work slot to send, a bunch of different proposals. Based on how you're spending those 20 slots, this will determine the direction of your business. So when you're using trial and error, you start to track and monitor, well, how am I spending those deep work slots, and what are the outcomes of this? So if I'm preparing, for instance, a speech, and this is helping me to be really well prepared for the following week or following month, a speech delivery, was that the best use of my time? Was that the best use of this deep work? And as you look back and you cross analysis, what you'll see is some of these slots were absolutely fundamental because they're prepared for you to do the most important work within your business, but some of these were maybe not the best use of your deep work, and maybe you can either outsource it or eliminate it altogether, or maybe even automate it. But you only learn that by trial and error, by looking back and seeing what was the best use of my time there, and was this the most relevant action for me to take. And as you do this every month, when you do a monthly review and you cross analysis, maybe you do this every week, and you look back and think, how did I spend all my mornings? Then you will start to see, these are the actions that I'm taking that aren't really that relevant, or these are the actions I'm not taking that I now regret. And this is how I came to find out what the best ways of spending that deep work were for me, is because every single week and every single month, I would ask myself, was that the best use of my time? Did I focus on the needle moving activities the most? What were some of the things that I procrastinated or postponed but could have been a game changer? What were some of the things I did but really didn't make that much of a difference? And you only learn through cross analysis and going backwards. A lot of the productivity advice out there, including productivity advice that I have given, assumes that you know what you're doing and what the what's are, but actually it's super challenging, and it's so easy to just do one of the things and not really think it through. Okay, I have 5 deep work activities I could be doing now. Well, I kind of feel like doing this one, let me do that one. Absolutely fine, but if that's your strategy for the entire month or the entire year, there might be some blind spots where some of the key activities aren't being addressed. And unless you can outsource them to someone else, that's something that you need to check in with yourself. Is this something that you need to be working on that you're not doing in those deep work slots? And I'm saying in the morning, but this is valid for the entire day. Those just go for the deep work slots in the morning. But then afterwards, how are you spending the rest of the morning and the entire afternoon? And is that the best use of your time? And does that actually move the needle forward? What often happens when we don't do this work, we get caught up in the urgency thing. We feel very productive because we're ticking everything off, but are there even tasks that needed to be done in the first place? And we go into that hustle and grind mode where we just think, let me just do as much as possible, and hopefully some of that was relevant. You can be so much more effective if you really narrow down and think, right, if I only have 6 hours a day to work, what can I focus on that will make a difference in my business? And I've seen that with some of our friends who are running companies, and they're also parents, and they have a lot less time available to actually focus on the business because they're also taking care of their child. And then they start to think way more strategically because they have less hours, and they start to narrow it down to the most important needle moving activities to make a difference in their business, in their work, in their career, to move forward. So this is the one thing that I feel is really missing when it comes to productivity advice, and it's sort of a productivity illusion. This idea that we have all these hacks and tools and gimmicks, they're great, I love them. I also geek out on productivity stuff, but then what for? What's behind all of these tools? What are you actually doing, and is that even worthwhile? Are you satisfied and fulfilled doing those activities? Do they align with your core why? Are they linked to your core vision? Do they move the business forward? Are there activities that need to be done in the first place? Those are the fundamental questions you need to ask yourself before applying all the bells and whistles and hacks that are great. But before applying them, first ask yourself, what activities are worth my time? Am I willing to prioritize them? Will they move the business forward? Are they aligned with my why and vision? Once all of that is answered, then you can start to have a little Pomodoro break, time block the calendar, do the maker, manager, schedule, have focus and deep work slots, etc., because then you're really clear on what you're doing and it's aligned and it's meaningful, and then you can use all the how tools to make that what more effective. But if the what in the first place is not aligned, then no matter how effective and efficient you are, it doesn't really do anything. And the only way to know that is through trial and error, through looking back. Are you reaching the outcomes that you're after? And if you're not, what are some of the actions that you're not taking that could lead to your outcome? And then how can you start to schedule them in and make them a priority, because they will actually help you and support you to reach the outcomes you're after. Hope this makes sense. Hope this is useful for you. Comment below, what do you think of this and productivity advice in general? What do you feel has actually helped you to be more productive and performing and isn't just an illusion? And how do you find out what the what's are in your day-to-day business and work? I'd love to hear from you. My name is Katie. I work as a high performance and conscious leadership coach, speaker, and podcast host. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, like it, and leave a comment. If you're listening via podcast, then give it a 5-star and a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. This really makes such a huge difference for the podcast. So thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next episode.